Grade 12. So I have been looking at the results from your survey, and I've also been discussing with the other grade 12 teachers, and we are going to give you an update on what's expected, what's coming up. First of all, going back to the plan for the next few weeks. So you should have finished reading the play. Now, I don't know if you have or not because I've had very few submissions. I'm going to assume that you are still in the process of reading it. This week, we're going to be continuing to look at conflict and themes and character analysis. And I'm going to talk about that in this video in a minute or two. Annotated bibliography is due on Friday. Now, that's been set a long time ago. And I've already done a separate video about that, so watch that again if you need help, but it is due on Friday. The oral commentary still stands, and that is going to be the week after next. Next Monday I'm going to send you out your passages for that so that you can get on with it, and I'll make a video to explain how to do it. It's exactly like you've done before. The big news is this: we are going to cancel because we are overloading you perhaps with work. I am aware that in other subjects you've also been handed a lot to do. So this is going to make things easier. So for this week we're looking at the play and some literary elements of it. There's an annotated bibliography due, and next Friday, the 3rd of April, will be the oral commentary. So that's what's coming. Let's go and look at something. So conflict in literature. So conflict was a task I asked you to look at yesterday, and I don't know to what extent you understood it, so I'm going to give you some further explanation. So a conflict is the basis of any story. A story is only a story when something happens, when there's a conflict between two people or two animals or two creatures that somehow needs to be solved. So if you tell the story, the cat sat on the mat, that is not a story, it's too short. But if you say the cat sat on the mat and then the dog chased it, that's a conflict because there's a cat and a dog. But the cat sitting on the mat is a very boring chain of events that isn't really a story. So conflict is at the heart of any proper piece of literature, any type of narrative. And there's different types of conflict. So one type of conflict that we find in literature can be two men or two women, two human beings struggling against each other. Harry Potter, there's an example, straightforward, one person versus another. Okay, quite common. That's not the case in this play. It's not two men struggling against each other. Another type of conflict is man versus nature. And, whether it's Jaws or into the wild, any kind of person who's trying to achieve something or struggle against a dangerous animal or climb a mountain, those things, that's the conflict that makes the story interesting. Another one that is very common and very relevant in Enemy of the People is man versus society. The protagonist, the main character, struggles against society's rules. If you've seen The Hunger Games, it's about people trying to survive against an oppressive system. Likewise, The Handmaid's Tale. But in The Enemy of the People, you have one man who's Dr. Stockman struggling against the rules and the workings of society. And that is the essence of this story, how he tries to do what he thinks is the right course of action and the trouble that he faces in doing it. Another type of conflict can be man versus self. So in this case, you have one man fighting against basically himself, something that is flawed within himself. In the case of Othello, there in the middle, he's fighting against his own inner sense of jealousy that he cannot get over. So it's a struggle against some part of yourself. And a new type of conflict that sort of arises in recent years is man versus technology. Okay, so whether it's against an AI or a computer or some kind of system, it's a very common thing. Those stories are interesting because you want to see how does the character succeed, right? What do they have to do in order to succeed? Finally, when we fix the conflict and when the story works itself out and ends, that's called resolution. Resolution is the fixing of conflict, whether it's any of those previous types of conflict. Okay, so to sum up, the one that you are most interested in for Enemy of the People is man versus society. And when they finally get a solution to it, it's called a resolution. Okay, now that is what you need to know about conflict. So what I'm going to do now at 8:40 a.m. on Wednesday, well, it's not yet 8:40 a.m., but it will be, hopefully, when you've watched this. We are going to have a call for anyone who is on Teams. I will be there, and I will be happy to discuss this and any other topics coming up from Enemy of the People. Okay, so it's not obligatory that you join the call. It's offered at the usual class time. So if you are there, join in. Let me know how it's going and any questions you have about that or anything else. Remember, the diary entry is cancelled. It is now going to disappear off its learning. You just have to focus on getting through the play. That is the main thing you have to do right now. And I will be available in the call. I hope to speak to you then.